kick off with.
Good evening, everyone. I'll hand over to the chair of tonight's meeting. I remind everyone here in the room that we are now live streaming. I'd like to request that all participants wait until being invited to speak by the chair. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand. Once invited to speak, please preface your contribution by stating your name. This will help the mic to lock in on the primary speaker and thereby maximise the sound quality for those watching at home. If you are watching at home and wish to participate in tonight's meeting, please turn your video on. If you are just observing, please turn your video off. Unless actively speaking, all those watching the meeting via Zoom should have their mics muted. I will now hand over to tonight's chair, Councillor Price.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of full council. Item 1, apologies. Do we have any apologies for tonight?
No, but Councillor Westbrook did say she may not be able to attend due to her operation.
Yeah, I can see you there, Adrian. So feel free to chip in as a resident normally would if you have anything. So feel free to put your hand up. Declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations of interest on the agenda today? Yes.
Oh, it's more a question for the clerk actually. We've got the Canberra community thing coming up. Are we making a recommendation tonight on that, or is it just an update? Because if we're making a recommendation to spend money, then I'd declare an interest.
It will be a proposal to spend money.
Okay, so I declare a non-pecuniary interest. I'm the trustee of the charity that looks after the land. So I will won't take part in the vote when it comes to it. All right. Yes.
Yes.
I best to declare an interest then because we have it on our agenda at charities on Wednesday as well. And me, I guess.
Okay. No worries.
And I think it's probably likewise for John.
Hi, John.
Indeed.
Sorry, you joined the part of the party. Declaration of interest. Give me declaration of interest.
Oh, after the,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
And you need to sentence.
Sorry, did you get that, Andrew? Yeah. That's okay.
I'd like to see Councillor Hubbard, Councillor Westbrook, Councillor Aves, Councillor Stokes, did you say? No. Councillor Price.
No, not.
Oh, sorry, Councillor.
Not me.
Sorry.
Not me. Thank you very much. So, item 3, public participation. For anyone who is here today or on Zoom who may want to participate. Oh, is this for any old item, or am I assuming it is for the Canberra site? Like, do you
Oh, Sue, how lovely to see you. Sorry.
I mean, it's up to you, but if it's for the Canberra site, feel free to say now. You can obviously leave, or would you rather wait for the items here and then speak at that point?
I'm happy to wait for it to come up and yeah, no problem.
Is there anyone else? Yes, Joe McCann.
Hi, Joe McCann, Melksham. On the agenda tonight was a big list of projects, and there were, I think it was 41 that are high priority projects that the council are still to complete, and a number of those projects date back a number of years. Does the council have a problem with taking plans from paper to pavement? And if so, what's the council identified as being a key, and how are we going to rectify it?
Thanks very much. Joe. It's not really appropriate for us to discuss right here now and answer the question of why the project haven't been done. But I'm more than happy to sit down with you.
We're talking in general, not about one specific project, but obviously 41 projects that are high priority that aren't complete. You would suggest there must be somewhere of them getting things completed. I appreciate some of those things on that list are things like park signage, which I'm not really sure. That's not my to say what is high priority for the council, but there has to be at some point, is there not, that the council thinks we're not getting as much done as we felt we were getting done. And I didn't know if the council had identified where those issues stem from within their entire kind of processes and normal day-to-day routine and what they're going to do about it.
No, we haven't to that. No, we can't give you an answer for that. So, anything else? Thank you, Joe. Do anyone online at all? No one? Okay, thank you very much. Item 4, question from councillors. Have we had any questions from councillors?
Some questions from Councillor Griffin. I believe you have had the answer to these, but from Calpesh,
Yes, I believe so.
but do you still want?
No, the only sort of follow-up from that was the VAT review. Has that commenced yet? When do we expect to get a report?
No, it hasn't commenced yet. I don't know the exact date now that they're coming in, because it's a different pattern than what we originally thought was coming in. But I did have a discussion with Calfish about that, so it's due to happen, but I can't tell you the exact date. I'll email you tomorrow the date if that's okay.
That one question.
No, no one's unaware.
Thank you very much. Item 5 minutes to confirm as a correct record the minutes of the full council meeting held on the 19th of August. Any questions or comments on this at all? Okay, then I'll propose to take them forward. Do I have a seconder? Oh, anyone? Jack?
Yeah, fine.
All in favour? Yeah, no, thank you very much. Item 6, town mayor's announcements. I don't particularly have anything, but I will say actually, in the last couple of weeks, actually the other weekend, we had quite a big day for events in the town. So just a shout out to the Lions for their 50th anniversary picnic, for Forest and Sandridge for their 150th anniversary, and for Melchtown Council for putting forward the Proms in the Park, which was, I was there, quite a roaring success. So that's all I have for that. Item 7, the police report. Have we all had a look at the police report? Unfortunately, Gemma couldn't be here today. But have you all had a look, and do we have any comments or notes at all? Okay. We will just note that then. Item 8, report from unitary councillors. We have a couple here. Yes, Phil?
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's just to say, coming up at the next cabinet meeting, we've got the local development plan. It's coming back, as you may remember, the local development plan, which sets up the spatial planning strategy for Wiltshire over the next 14 years. So there's all the policies in place, and it's replacing the Wiltshire Core Strategy, which is Wiltshire planning policies. As well as setting out the allocations and the site allocations for housing across the county to meet the localised demand. It's about 1% a year. Anyway, that went out some time back for public consultation. A lot of those responses from public have come back in now. So the plan is that that goes to the next cabinet meeting, and then from there it will go on to full council. Really to push that forward to the planning inspector to have a little look at and hopefully improve. But obviously that's being moved forward because there's a lot of talk. As Labour are carrying out consultation at the moment, you may know, I say the government are carrying out consultation at the moment on the NPPF, which, sorry, I don't want to bore anyone, but it is quite, it's like, but the NPPF is the National Planning Policy Framework, which sets out the planning framework really that governs local planning policy. Now, as some of you may be aware, the government are consulting on an increase of 81% to Wiltshire's housing allocation, which is significantly beyond what has been considered local need in the past. So that 81% essentially means that the government want us to build about 3,800 houses a year over the lifetime of that plan. In fact, going forward, because their aspiration is to build 300 houses a year, 1.5 million over the parliament. But what that will mean, of course, is that once our local plan is sat with the inspector, Once the changes to the NPPF happen, assuming that they do, then they will then change the size of the figures. Wiltshire Council will then have to go out for further consultation to allocate land to significantly increase development across the county. So personally, I think it's an absolute dog's breakfast. What's going to happen, of course, is this requirement of an extra 81%, literally 3,000 to 4,000 homes a year. It's pretty much undeliverable. Even if you can find the land and you can allocate the housing, what we know from our current experience is developers aren't developing. They release houses in response to market conditions. And at the moment, there are well over 16,000 planning applications across Wiltshire that have been granted or approved. Yet developers aren't building them, they're sat on them. As a result, Wiltshire's not delivering sufficient homes a year to meet the current target. We don't even believe, I don't think, that the country has the capacity to deliver the number of homes. We haven't built 300,000 homes in this country since 1977. The capacity just simply doesn't exist. Anyhow, all these fun and games we'll have to wait and see. But for those of you locally, if you want to go to the local plan, the next stage of the local plan vote will be cabinet, and then it'll go on to full council, and we'll wait and see what happens with the NPPF.
Thank you very much. Yes, Jack.
No, nothing.
Oh, okay. John, anything?
Thank you, Chair. A couple of quick things. The council also, at its cabinet meeting last week, adopted a new SEND and alternative provision strategy for the year. I won't bore you with all the details of it now, but if you are involved in SEND or alternative provision at all, or have an interest in it, it's well worth having a look, because actually there's some quite interesting ideas in there. And directions that they are looking at going down. And maybe just as a very brief update to the council, as you're aware, Chair, I also serve on the Local Government Association from Wiltshire Council, and in my role as the lead member on Children and Young People's Board for the independent group on that. I recently spoke at the National Care Leavers Conference, where there was some very interesting information coming in from young people. In the next couple of weeks, I'll be heading up to Harrogate for the delayed LGA National Conference, delayed because of the general election. At that, I'll be chairing one of the plenary sessions looking at early years and children's play. And I have recently I chaired an LGA webinar on free school rules auto enrolment, and a look at changing the rules to try and make it so that people are automatically enrolled to preschool meals. And I will, a week on Monday, be chairing one on young people's oral health.
Okay. Thank you very much. Item 9, signatories. So the few things we need to do here. First of all, the Lloyd's account, we currently have Mel Robb and Linda Roberts on there. Obviously, Linda's no longer here in the council, and Mel can't actually be on it anyway, so her name shouldn't have been on there. So we're looking for 2 more signatories for the Lloyd's account. Do we have any takers?
Am I on it, Tom?
You're not, no. Would you like to be, Pat?
I might as well, I suppose.
Fantastic.
Well said.
I'm happy to, unless there's anything that precludes me from doing so as chair of the Governance Committee.
Is there anything that stops Andrew doing it? So, fantastic, there we go. So, oh, yes.
I am one of the signatories, but I was of the belief we were closing the Lloyd's account. Because we didn't want it anymore. Because the reason we'd kept the Lloyd's account, which is what used to be called the Assembly Hall account, was because the Assembly Hall could take the banking to Lloyd's Bank overnight to that. With Lloyd's Bank not being there anymore, I'm just wondering why we are maintaining that account as well as the new ones at Unity, etc., etc. Because I was under the impression it was going to be closed. You'll get back to it.
Yeah, we don't know right now. I mean, what I would say for now is if we, at the moment, accept, we'll bring on Pat and Andrew, and then if we need to close it, that'll come back to council for confirmation there, if need be. Individually. So we'll do this one first then. So I'll propose Pat and Andrew. Do I have a seconder? Hello, all in favour?
I'll just abstain.
Okay.
Move yourself.
Yeah, can vote. Okay, so is that just one abstention, is it? Thank you very much. The next part was, first of all, just to confirm, Graham, am I right in saying you'd like to be removed from Unity?
Yes, please.
Yeah, that's not just confirm that. We don't need to get a fourth person, we'll be fine with 3 on that. And the last one, I believe, is just to confirm mine and John's. Me and John are signatories, that's correct from that request?
Go on to the online account.
Yeah, so do you want to explain what's this, right, Tracy? 1 second.
So will you continue with signatories and create online accounts for them?
Okay, John, myself and you, we're signatories on Unity, but we need to create online accounts. And we've just been asked, are we happy to do so? And if so, can we will continue in our role? If not, we'll be removed. Yeah, I'll create an online account. What, confirm you're happy with that, John? Yeah. And that's everything for signatories. There's nothing left to vote on that before our 2 new signatories. Thank you very much, guys. Item 10, financial regulations, to adopt the financial regulations 2024. Does anyone have any comments or questions on this item at all? Yes, Andrew.
The papers that are presented includes a couple of pages of what I consider to be guidance notes that suggest some items are optional and can be removed, but at the moment they seem to be incorporated in what's proposed to be adopted. So is it the intention that where it says enter council name and things like that, Melton Town Council will go in there?
Names, but we just put town council.
Yeah.
So if that is the case, there are several clauses within the regulations that would require deletions or amendments. So in 1.5, for example, it considers whether the clerk is also the RFO or whether they are separate individuals. So there will be some revision made to that. The monetary values contained within them, some refer to amounts excluding VAT, some refer to amounts including VAT, and some don't mention VAT at all. I think it would be clearer if there was some uniformity about the treatment of those monetary values. I'm not querying any of the values at all as proposed, but I think some clarity on whether they're all inclusive or all exclusive of VAT would help to make it a bit more straightforward and lead to less confusion potentially in the future.
Okay, would it be possible, because at the last meeting we did ask if anybody, if you could send your comments through to me, and I haven't received any, so it's difficult for me to just comment on it now.
Oh, yes, yes.
We might defer this to next Monday, so if Andrew can send his.
Yes.
Because we're going to call another council meeting for next Monday.
Yep.
If it's possible, you could send us, me and Capish, through your comments,
Sure.
and then we can defer it and bring it back there.
Yes.
Okay, brilliant. Are there any other comments at all this time? Yes, John.
I'm delighted actually with deferring this for a week because my comment was going to be, I think we need to have this in its fine form if we're going to be adopting it. And I would absolutely support the request that I would rather we actually had a consistency throughout the report and all the figures were either inclusive or exclusive.
Yeah,
Not,
that's what I've got to look at, because it's nothing that myself or Capish have changed. That's what's stated on the NALC model thing, so I'll have to go back and read that and see where that figure's identified.
I appreciate that, but it's much more helpful for you now if we say,
Yeah.
well, we prefer them to introduce that again next week and have you. But I do think that if there's anything in there where it needs to insert this or choose between this or that, it's got to come to us in its completed format. So that what we approve is to the letter what it is.
We'll defer this till next week then. If anyone has any comments, please email them to Trade, if it's easier then for us to make the amendments once we have it all in front of us. I think we've all tried to amend the policy off the hook before, and it does get quite difficult to keep track of what we're changing. But thank you very much. I'll defer that item. Item 11, a motion from Councillor Stokes. Would you like to start us off, Charlie, with your motion?
Yeah, so just a couple of weeks ago, we went to Melksham Area Board and was very, very kindly managed to get a grant from them for £1,080 to hold a preliminary event for the creation of the Youth Advisory Board. Now, this is a concert which we would invite the youth of Melksham and Melksham Without to come to give them information about what the council do and to gauge their interest in actually being part of the Youth Advisory Board. In order for us to get the grant from the area board, we would need to match fund it. So that's what I've asked for tonight, is the funding of £1,080, and also that we give delegated powers as well to the officers to help get that up.
Do we have any comments here at all on that? John, then Phil.
Yes, of course, the council has already supported in principle the project of a youth council. This is a detail about actually how to go about and make it happen. I think it's worth saying that this isn't just a stab in the dark idea, but a fair amount of work has gone into looking at and researching with the young people what the most effective method of being able to communicate with them, get ideas from them was. And the proposal that Charlie's bringing to us this evening, and frankly, I think underselling for the work that's been put into it, is roughly based on a similar one that they did at Devices. And the concept there was, and the concept for the event being held here, is that the event isn't led by Charlie, it's not led by an officer, it's not led by a councillor, but actually the bands that are there for the night are the ones who will provide the entertainment. And during that entertainment and interspersed between the songs, etc., be asking young people their opinion on things, questions about things. And this won't be a form-filling exercise. Most of it will probably be physical. Go and stand over there if you think this, stand over there if you think that. Things that young people will engage in, will be part of. Things that young people have told us they would want to be engaged in or would be part of. So it's a really good way to be able to launch the event and to be able to get a core of young people who the council could continue to work with post this event and to really start to pull the youth council element together, and a way also of getting wider engagement, particularly reaching out to young people where perhaps there is more challenge in being able to get to speak to them. And I know that, for instance, Charlie has been in touch with our community conversations Friday
That's it.
about engaging young people from Forest, and perhaps community conversations being able to support some of the ticket costs for them to come. So it's not for the town or for, in fact, the area board to be doing that. There's a dedicated group for doing that. Let's utilise it. I think this would be a really positive action that would be working with hundreds of young people to get feedback and to get ideas, and would give a legacy group that we can continue to work with into the future. And I absolutely commend it to the committee. Have you got a seconder?
Whoever.
I appreciate you've worked hard on it, so if you'd like to second it.
Thank you.
Yeah. But I think that it's a cracking idea. It'd be madness not to make the most of it.
And just to expand slightly on what Councillor Hubbard said, and we've said much more than I probably could. The actual event itself, as John said, it's going to have a band. The band themselves come from Melksham Oak. So this is going to be very much youth led, and we actually want to engage in some of the students from Oak in all surrounding areas to actually come and be part of actually setting up the event as well, so that they are part of it. This isn't just an adult thing that we're just going to run and go, this is what we're doing for you. This is going to be them helping us to do it all.
Phil and then Andrew.
Yeah, thanks. I've got a few questions. I mean, I think they're probably for the clerk as much as you, Charlie.
Yeah.
If you don't mind.
No, that's not.
Yeah, I was just wondering, does Melksham Town Council have a budget that this can come out of, or are we going above and beyond and digging into reserves?
Looking at them.
Yeah, I mean, I was just looking actually down now to the budget to see where it could come out with, out of. I mean, obviously it's not, you don't have a specific one for.
Not these five people.
You said, Andrew had something in mind, have you looked at the budget?
On there, possibly.
I don't know what grant TRC is.
I think it's worth just saying this isn't something that was included in last year's budget, nor were a lot of things that we've done over the last year, things that were included in last year's budget. It's a relatively small amount of money to come out of reserves for the council actually doing and delivering something.
I mean, this is about community development, and it's about engaging the community. I would have thought it would have come under community, come down budget.
But essentially, to answer your argument, there currently isn't a budget for it.
Okay, so this would come out of reserves, okay. How does it fit with the existing priorities? Because we've got a item coming up on the agenda. I know we've had separate email dialogue about this. We've already had a member of the public mention, we've got 41 projects on that list that we would like to do and are ongoing. My concern is that we're going to add another one to it, and then that's just even more stuff that we're not actually doing, and we need to prioritise those projects. And I'm just concerned this is the new shiny one, so everything that everybody's forgotten about from the last 6 months is just going to be falling off the back end of it because officers are chasing the new thing, not making much progress, and then something new will come along. Something new will come along in a couple of months when someone has a busy idea, and then we're going to be chasing that one for a bit, and we're not making progress.
Yeah.
The youth advisory board is one of the high priorities sort of identified.
So yeah, but the point is there's 40 odd high priorities, isn't there?
That's one of them.
Yes, but not
Yeah, I'm
all
not
of them.
saying it's not one of them, but there's 40 odd high priorities.
You were focused, you said just allowed them to have a new one.
Some of them have finished because one of them comes, which is gone. So some of these have actually gone. Others are.
So this list is not that up to date because there's
Well, it was-
projects on there that.
It was produced before the problems took place, so I couldn't take it off because it hadn't actually taken place. But you know, I mean, some of them I think probably aren't actually. Well, the skates events as well, number 7, so that's gone. And some of them are a Blue Hall acquisition, Assembly Hall, that obviously merges into the meeting next week. I understand what you're saying, but it's on there. It's in
Yeah, I
the-
suppose
it's in
what I'm
the
saying
mix.
is you've got 41 equally high priority things here, some of which have been discharged, but we've still got another whatever 37.
But this is
priority things.
Right, so
What we're not doing is prioritising that stuff and ascertaining what we want to do, and as a result, we're not doing anything because we can't make our mind up. And I'm not saying that this project should fall. I'm just saying we need to decide what we're doing, which of those things is the most, which is important to us, which is not, and therefore until we've had a debate about which of the, what is our priority and what the officer capacity is, I think that's something that we need to be really quite conscious of, because I don't think we can do it all at the moment. We're not doing anything. Okay, so that's the first one.
If I could, just because that's
Yeah, okay.
leaving quite an emotive, I don't want everyone like ganging up on like loads of ideas, but I don't want to then move on to your next point and then lose that
Yeah,
point.
okay.
People have something to say on that. So if I can just go around the room, we'll quickly go through what people's thoughts are, and it's probably clearly quite a few people with eyes. So if I start with Charlie over to your bit, and then I did have John, Jenny and Graham, let's not try and pile in. Oh, yeah, but Andrew's point was different. Yes, Andrew's a different point, so this is on the exact point that Phil's just made about priorities. So, yeah, that's all like jump on, but yeah, so Charlie, John, Jenny and Graham on this one point.
I do get where you're coming from, Phil, in prioritising, and we do need to prioritise. One of the issues that we've got is that the money from the area board, which you'll know because we were at the meeting, is only for a certain period of time. If we don't claim it within that period of time, which is only 3 months, then we don't get the money to use for the event. In which case it's kind of wasted and we don't get to do the event, and then it just sets back further as setting up the youth advisory board, which, you know, I think would be really beneficial for the council as a whole, as well as for us to be able to give information to Melksham Without and to the area board as well on what we can gather from them. So it is a bit time limit sensitive as well in that sort of sense. I do understand where you are coming from in prioritising, as this is already on the list though as a high priority because of the fact that, you know, we had already said that we wanted to get this established, and this isn't something that I've just sort of sat back and kind of gone nothing with. I have done the hard work along with Councillor Hubbard and other councillors to help. You know, this is something that we really want to push forward with, and this isn't something that we just want to go, oh, it was a great idea, but we didn't do anything with, which is why if we start it now, go with the momentum and keep going, we could have this set up with it before the next elections.
So then we had John, Jenny and Graham, if we just kind of be relatively short on it, I don't want it, but.
Point being made, this is not a new project. This is continuing in an existing project and actually making one of them happen, which is surely what we're really wanting to start doing.
Yeah, Jenny?
Yeah, I think it's just voting against this based on the fact that the projects haven't yet been prioritised basically says that we're never going to do another project. Because the likelihood we're going to get agreement today on priority is not very high. Unless we want to be until midnight.
Ditto, it's on the list. The fact that at the bottom of the list is actually because the list is sorted alphabetically, and Y for youth comes late in the alphabet.
That was just a mop up. That's
okay.
Probably unless it's in York, then you still have
Feedback on that.
so next finish.
Well, yeah, the other question I had is I'm always a little bit concerned with these things. I mean, I think they can work very well. But I do always have a little bit of a concern that sort of, you know, they get sort of hijacked by party politics to a certain extent. So obviously we don't want that to happen because we are, how we spend our money is absolutely non-political in that respect, non-party political. So, I mean, what assurances are there, I suppose, that it will be done in a way that, you know, sort of its certain engagement doesn't creep into party political gesture? Because I always think this party political stuff's a bit gross.
Can I
Another that.
Can I answer that? That's
Yeah, that's fine.
So you're right. This should not be party political. This isn't about what party can do what, which is why I've not only had the help of Councillor Hubbard, but I have actually also asked Councillor Oatley as well to be able to give me some advice. We've talked about this project quite a lot. This is not something that I want to say, oh, what party was able to do this? I am trying to include everybody as much as possible.
Cool.
So yeah, please don't think that this is.
No, that's fine. Just making sure that the end product doesn't creep into party.
No,
politics.
as far as I'm concerned, this is people, and people aren't you know,
Okay,
it's not
great.
under one politics.
So the last question,
Yeah.
it's the very last one. Where is the event going to be held? Is the intention to hold it?
Melksham Assembly Hall.
Okay, so that's
So we'd need-
additional expenditure, isn't it? That's a booking for another, that's in addition to the.
No, that would be within the costings that I originally made out for the area board, which I don't think I think I did include them on this one, where it comes under for the costings of that. So it is all included for the
Oh, right.
Assembly Hall as well, so that
Yeah.
isn't a separate.
So all the town council assets, if we've done, so when assemblies will use them, that the cost of that booking will come out.
Yes.
Is that going to be discounted or is that for normal booking fee? Because there was a bit of hoo-ha over how we organise our booking fees with zillion
I
different
did
projects.
ask the question of Hugh and Brian, and I wasn't told it was discounted, but we will double check that, yeah. No problem.
Andrew.
But hopefully my questions aren't contentious. It's merely what sort of timescale is, assuming that the proof is given, what sort of timescale is it anticipated this will take place?
So I need to use the money within the next 3 months. So what we were hoping was within end of October for the event to
Okay.
happen, because that's when school holidays are. It
Okay.
seems to make sense to get it so that they can, all the children have a chance to attend.
And my second question is, there's reference in item 9 about safeguarding concerns. Do we have sufficient coverage from DBS checked adults to
Yes.
manage that?
Very kindly, with conversations with councillor Hubbard, I believe 4 youth will be helping with that.
Any other comments from any other councillors on this? Okay, I will just say personally, I think it's a fantastic idea. I have no intention of repeating what everyone else has said, but I fully support and endorse this motion. We have a over, which is Charlie, seconder. It did say it was Jenny, but are we? Who was the seconder for the sake of the?
Technically, but if you'd like to.
No, I'm not, it's just because it's blank.
No, I'm aware how much time you've got. Happy for you to do it, but take either of us.
Okay.
It doesn't matter.
Councillor Hubbard's the seconder.
Happy to do that.
So, last call. Any comments on this? Okay, we've got opposed and a seconder. All in favour? All against? Abstentions? 1. Thank you very much. One thing I would like to say, unless anyone has any issues with it, we do have someone here who wants to talk on item 14. Although item 12 may be relatively short, item 13 may be a little bit of a longer debate. So I'd like to propose that we move item 14, the Canberra Community Park motion forward. So we can have a member of the public talk on it and hopefully get that motion done, you can go home. Before that, are there any issues or concerns and you won't have any problems with that? Okay, but do I need to propose that? Can I just do it? Can I just do it?
Is that before the change of date?
No, so I'm now moving, so we're meant to be on item 12, but I'm now moving item 14 ahead of that.
Okay.
So that Carl, the member of the public, can talk, discuss and see how the motion goes forward. So item 14, the Canberra Community Park. I want to say, so I apologize for the lateness. I did circulate some information about that earlier on. I hope everyone's had a chance to read it and look at it. But before we debate it, I do know Carl wants to come forward and talk on this, so I'm going to propose we suspend standing orders. Happy? All in favour? Yeah, unanimous, I would assume. Thank you very much. Carl, do you want to come forward, state your full name and then put your views to the council, please?
Yeah, so my name's Carl Houghton and I am the Community and Family Navigator for Spurgeon's Children's Charity. I'm just here to give a brief history of the Canberra Community Park and what the idea of the project is. So just to give a bit of context, I work with Spurgeon's, who is commissioned by Wiltshire County to deliver the family hubs. They used to be the children's centre. So you may be aware that there used to be children's centres around Wiltshire. One of them were located on the Canberra site, next to the 4 youth. So basically, when I was in that building, I had a community role called Community and Engagement and Volunteer Coordinator. I'm now the Community and Family Navigator within this new contract, but we were approached by 4Youth to help develop the land behind Canberra and make it into a community use space. So that's for any age group, any person who would like to use it. And we're on motion to get that done basically by hopefully mid next year. We've started a project actually in the next 2 weeks. So we have had support from lots of different local agencies. SSE come and help strip the land. So as you can imagine, over time, the land builds up. A lot of sort of thorn bushes, trees are fallen down, various things, and they finally cleared that for us. So basically within my role, I help build up community projects. I help to apply for grant funding, so that's why I'm heavily involved in this project, as well as bringing other agencies involved. So we have more recently had support from the tree wardens in Wiltshire Council. They're going to supply a whole load of trees to go throughout the site. One of those, they've split that into 2 grants. One of them has been accepted, the other one is pending. And well, hopefully, I mean, it's going to be brilliant. We're going to have an orchard area for fruit. We're going to have a wildflower area. We're going to have, I always butcher this word, so I might be able to help me, apiary.
Aviary.
No.
Yeah. Trees.
Yeah.
The tree, more trees.
That's the one.
I mean, yeah. So, yeah, well, that's a massive help. But before we do that, we wanted to get a path put in so that it's accessible for everyone to move around it. That's for wheelchair and buggy access as well. The ground's so uneven that it wouldn't be okay for them at the moment, but we're looking at how we can do that. So we have sought support from people from different community groups. Unfortunately, no one's been able to take on this work or commit to it. So at the moment, we are reaching out to Wiltshire Landscape, who have given us a really good pricing on that site to put in the path, hopefully before November, because the trees need to be planted November to February time. So they're starting in 2 weeks to hopefully dig out the site, but we're looking for a bit more support to get the path fully put in. Funds don't allow at the moment. So that's sort of a rough history of it. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Carl. I'll reinstate standing orders. Yeah, everyone. we'll work that one out in a minute. So.
Democracy and all that.
I'll go to the room shop. I would just say, you know, I fully endorse this. I think it's a fantastic project. Recently going around talking to residents, you know, they are crying out for space, they are crying out for green areas to be more upgraded, modernised. These areas for families, wheelchair access is a fantastic one as well. No doubt a question about budget will come forward. This is something that would fit within the SIL budget, so that could potentially be a way forward as well. But I think Carl did a really good job of explaining what it can offer and the work behind it. I would like to go to John just to discuss, maybe give more of an information about the urgency of this and what's come to council in this situation. If John, you could take over that would be.
Thank you, and thank you, Carl. Carl has been the driving force within the steering group that's been taking this forward and has done an amazing job in helping us progress and develop this project. This is not a for youth project, although it is on for youth land, and for legal purposes, the payment will have to go for youth. But the intention is that there will be a Friends of Canberra Park group. I'm in discussions with somebody who's got absolutely nothing to do with For Youth at all about potentially chairing that. But until I've actually managed to get their arm up behind their back and them to say yes, I can't really name them. But we did think we were going to be able to do all this without coming to any council for any help at all. Because we had managed to get a company to agree to do this as part of their social responsibility work. Tragically, and through no fault of their own or ours, at very short notice, they were unable to complete the work. Absolutely understand why, and it's just one of those things that happens. But what that meant is we were suddenly left without the pathways being covered. We can't move forward with the rest of the project because to put the pathways in, you need to have diggers and dumper trucks and all the rest of it traipsing over the land, which won't work too well if we plant all the trees in November, which the timetable calls for. So, and the grants that we've got for the trees that have already been secured are only valid if we're planting the trees this season. So we're really up against it. Unfortunately, it all fell apart. So we've got, Carl and I spent a wonderful day or two writing applications to everywhere, and then Tom said, why don't you ask the town council? And I thought, well, why not? But the reality is this will be a community park that just about anyone will be able to use. The land at the moment just sits fallow. If you go down and you look at it now, you've got grass, hay almost knee high. The caretaker will from time to time try and cut a path in it, but nothing more than that will ever happen with that land. The condition of us getting Canberra was that we took this piece of land on with it. We don't have the means or the capability of managing that land, but this is a way in which the community will be able to have good use of it. We've already, for instance, had Gifford Surgery offer to sponsor a bench coming onto the land, and we're hoping that some others will on that. We have a very, very limited pot of money that came from, was it Wiltshire Wildlife Trust? Yes. Which was going to buy a couple of benches and stuff to go in there. If we're not successful in getting this funding, that will pay for digging out the paths, and then we'll worry about how we fill them in. One of the options to fill them in might be to use scrapings off the road surface, which Wiltshire would give to us. The problem with those is that you can't get a DDA compliant surface from them. So whilst we could get a hard surface to walk on, Jack knows full too well the rest of the path we've got round the side that uses those chippings, and we were very grateful to Wiltshire for them, but you can't get it flat, you can't get a flush surface on there. So we wouldn't be able to have an DDA surface, which would be a real shame. The reality is, this is, I hate to use the term oven-ready project because it's got bad connotations from the past, but this is an oven-ready project for the town. The town could turn around and support this today. It could be pointed to diggers in the ground within 3 weeks that it's responsible for, and an open day in February next year that could only happen because of the intervention the town made. So sorry, Phil, it's new. And I appreciate that we've got a whole stack of things on there which we have been looking to achieve, but we also know, I was brave enough to say when we had the first conversation about prioritising with the BMX track that I'm really passionate about, we're not going to get that done immediately. This is actually something we can support and deliver and get done immediately, that the community will benefit from, and that will be there, and the town could proudly put its name to. And I hope that you will support it, and then any funds that we're lucky enough to get in elsewhere can only help improve the seating and the other ambience around it that we would like to provide.
Thank you very much, John. Andrew, Jenny,
Yeah, just ask.
sorry, Safi, Andrew, Jenny.
Somebody else will work. The only thing I want to clarify is, because obviously you're also sitting on the Alms House committee as well, the application that's coming up on Wednesday night, it's almost identical wording about pathing, so I just want to be clear that what are we, the £6.5 we've been asked for tonight to be used for, and then is the £4,000 going to be used for something else, and that be re-clarifying that before Wednesday, or is it £10,000 in total?
Do you mind if I answer that, Chair?
I'm just gonna, because it may be something Rob Carl can help, suspend standing orders for this discussion till we go back to the vote, and then Carl can have a bit of input if needed, so re-suspend standing orders, et cetera. Fantastic. It's up to you who wants to comment on that.
No, the only point I was gonna make on that is that, yes, the path is basically, that's the urgency at the moment. That's what needs to happen for this project to go through steam ahead. There are certainly other aspects to this project. There's the wildflower area, the orchard art area, the word I can't say area, and there's so many different elements to this project that £4,000 would contribute greatly to that. I've been more than happy to sort of change the application if able to do so with the Arms House if we're successful today, and explain the reasoning behind that first thing tomorrow morning. But yeah, so there are so many elements to this project that we do need support with, but we're just asking for that desperate at the moment, really.
Thanks, Carl. I think it's just useful to have that clarification as to what.
Absolutely.
The gun to our head, so to speak, is if we can't get the parts in, the project dies. Can I just clarify something on the costing though?
Yeah.
Because we had hoped, but Carol Pesh says the council can't. We had hoped that if the council was able to commission the whole piece of work and paid the bill directly, it would be able to recover the VAT. It has done this in the past on things, but Carol Pesh says that that's actually not compliant with the rules. So if that's the advice the RFO was given, we would have to follow it. So the full cost of the parkway is about 8K, isn't it?
7988.40.
Yeah.
And he's saying it's got to be payable to Full South.
For youth Southwest, it's just got the name mixed up.
Okay, thank you. Andrew, Jenny and Pat, then Graham.
I was just wondering, is it confirmed that planning permission is not required?
Yes.
Okay.
My only slight reservation, I do say slight massively, is the area is, as you've said, almost a wasteland and not used by the community at all. Is there a plan in place to make it very well known that that garden is there? Because, I mean, I've lived in this town my whole life and have never used it. And I don't believe it's a space that many people who don't live directly next to it will know it exists. So I just want confirmation that there is an extensive plan in place to spread the word to the community. There's this lovely community garden there, because we have other community gardens in the town that we just don't tell anyone that they exist. So that's my only concern. And as I said, it is only a very slight concern.
It's not there yet. It's just the field at the moment.
No, I know it's not there yet, but my concern, but hopefully you'll have it by February, I'm saying.
If I'm right, actually 30 to 40 people a day currently use the land already.
Okay.
Because it's regularly used for walking dogs.
Okay.
It's also a throughput walk, because although there's no footpath that exists, you can walk through our field, through a gap in the hedge into the field behind the hospital, round that, through a gap in the fence, and then through the camping field, and come out by the back end of Longford Road and.
Yeah, I know you mean.
Yeah, she used to be able to come out by Collier. Is it Collier?
No, it's down that end anyway. But that's Speed Road, down that end. Cornflower Road. So that's regularly used for that. So I think I can guarantee you more people would be using this one than use the Spiritualist Garden. That I still don't think anybody knows we have.
That was my question.
Thank you very much. Pat.
I think my question's been answered because I was just a bit curious about the whole cost of the park, because that's not what Carl has asked the charities, but I'm okay, thanks.
Thank you very much. Graham.
There's a series of queries on this. I mean, my understanding it's been the town council strategy to put all our various facilities together in KGV Park. And indeed, in KGV Park, we have, I think, 5 items on those 41 items of priority. Can I be reassured that this is in line with the strategy of putting all the facilities the town council pays for in the same place?
Yeah, it's not a town council project.
Yeah,
It's not a town council project, but so we're funding an independent thing apart from that there.
I mean, I would, okay.
Other members of the KGV.
I did.
People happy with this here, which by taking £5,000 or whatever from the town council, perhaps £5,000 less for KGV projects. That's the first question. The second question I've got here, I mean, I know that field, and I was going to come in and say, yes, there's quite a number of dog walkers who use that. It's overlooked by homes and houses. Have the residents of those houses been asked what they think of the project?
Yes.
Thank you. And the outcome was?
Overall support.
Thank you.
In fact, the feedback we've received is how much they enjoy listening to when we have youth activities happening in the field there, and how much they enjoy seeing it used more positively and constructively.
That's fine, but hey, you've got to ask where you owned up with subjects like lighting in the park, haven't you? And the third point I had here was that on my agenda here, I've only received this afternoon, it says update for councillor. There is no motion here on the agenda tonight. And the past record is that motions must be on the agenda in good time. Are we able to vote on this tonight?
The motion was wrong in the paperwork, wasn't it? Wasn't there?
No, there's no motion on the agenda. Says update from councillors. The paperwork here was sent through by email sometime today. So this is the first that I've heard of the project.
Yeah. It come next week.
Can it wait? Would you be willing? Are you able to wait a week for it to be put onto an agenda for next week potentially out of interest, or is that going to completely destroy the?
If that's what happens, that's what happens.
I mean, I'd like to vote on it today, but I don't know if we're allowed to, and I'm not gonna. I have no intention of doing something we're not allowed to.
Can I just? Sorry, James.
One second. I just want to just confirm some advice.
But on next week's.
Okay, because it doesn't say that we need to vote on to next week, so we're not voting to do it today, but I think we can still recommend for it to be ratified next week. So we can still do the discussion today, I think. It was Phil and then Jack.
Yeah, thanks. When it does come next week, can we have an update on the cost on there? Because it's gone from what, 6,657 to 13 plus another 1,300, is it?
Yeah.
So we've got any cost.
When that was purely VAT, the rest would have got an extra.
Yeah, I know, but we're not going to be able to claim VAT back, are
Yeah,
we?
that's
So it will be 8,000.
Yeah.
No, it's really heartbreaking because it's really difficult for me. I mean, I do know this area very well. I like the project. I like the footpath. And like John says, I was one of those children the back as a kid, going to Ilbion, although at the time we didn't go into the football pitch by Cornflower. We actually went into Corf Road. They when there used to be no access out a long time ago. Yes. Graham remembers that. The only person older than me, I think. But it's a lot of money, and we're talking about reserves, presumably.
Still, in which we haven't really spent, and there's still 40,000 in there. So, oh no, that's not really the reason to spend it.
Yeah.
We haven't spent it.
Have we got a set of priorities for SIL though? Because wasn't there some issue around SIL funding agreed on priorities with the parish council? Well, that was something that was tied down on the expenditure of SIL as part of the negotiations over the neighbourhood plan.
John, do you want to add?
There's clarity on that. Our SIL funding is in two parts. The first 15% of the SIL that we receive, and prior to the original neighbourhood plan being resolved, the only 15% of SIL we receive is purely the town council's funding to do with as it will. The top-up funding, the 10% additional that we receive, now that there is a neighbourhood plan in place, goes into a pot for joint work with the parish council. So jointly, we're working with them on the real-time information displays, for instance. But the first 15% that we receive is for the town council to use as the town council will on community infrastructure projects.
And we as a town council haven't set our own priorities for the expenditure of that SIL.
No.
And this is coming to us next week anyway, so I would like to know if there are other, because I mean, we've got a lot of other projects that we're going to be looking at and talking about tonight. Some of those are going to need funding. For example, if we take on the toilets in the centre of town to make those available to dog and cat food charity or whatever, there's going to be spending involved potentially with that. And I think we need to know what our priorities are for our projects and where our budgets are and how we're spending that budget. So I think that's, I'm not saying I'm off the fence necessarily, but I would like to get to the bottom of that this week, and then next week when we have the formal, when we vote on this, I think I'll be in a much clearer position to make a decision. But I do like the project as well.
Thank you. Jack.
Yeah, it was actually, to go back to you, Chair, saying there was no proposal in the document, it does actually stay in there. My proposal to the town council is, I don't know who this is from, so whether this is from yourself, actually, there is a.
Yes, there's something, yeah, so well, it's something that was put together. Is there not my proposal in there? Can we use that as a proposal? Or not really?
It says my proposal to the town council is.
Yeah.
We've not.
Well, I mean,
it's not been published.
yeah, I'm not going to bully this through. I'm not going to start playing around with standing orders not appropriate. But I think it would be good to have the conversation about it Monday. We can still have the debate and discussion here. I think that's still good because next Monday we do have a lot to discuss. That doesn't mean we can't discuss it next week, but still, let's feel free to have that discussion here and now. Certainly, whilst Carl was here, might potentially help. Graham.
I think it can potentially be far better supported and far better decided if we do think it's through just over these few days.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I mean, it looks like, despite my asking the questions there, yeah, looks like a nice and sensible project.
If there are no more questions at this point, first I'll reinstate standing order so we can actually put something together. Avoid, I'm going to forget to do that. I'm going to have the meeting without anything. So reinstate standing orders. John, all in favour? Fantastic, thank you. So we will defer this till next week's meeting. Are there any more comments here and now? If there aren't, I'd really urge every councillor to, if they have any questions, please feel free to send them to myself, to John, and even, and I'm probably Carl, if he's so involved in it, please, I would really urge people to do that.
Can I just clarify for next week's meeting, we're talking about the task and finish group.
So we haven't, which meeting called today.
Which meeting are we talking about?
So next week on Monday, there'll be a meeting called of full council to discuss several items due to, we need to have a full council meeting and confidential session to discuss some kind of budget situation.
Right.
During that,
A public meeting in which we.
there'll be a public meeting of the Assembly Hall and the Blue Pool, and that will be on that next week.
Okay,
Will
fine.
be called tomorrow morning. Tomorrow.
Okay, fine.
And on
I was
this.
just making sure that we didn't end up in the same trap next week. I'd like to get this sort of thing through. If it was, if it was going to be a private meeting, well, we couldn't make a decision.
Yes, John.
Just for clarity, because as Safi has already raised, there's at least one other group, the Arms Houses, but there are others that we have gone to seeking support for funding on this, many of whom would have been looking at what happens this evening as to decide what they do. If you are deferring this to next week, and I understand that Madam Fo, you found the spanner, but there will be groups who will be thinking, well, we couldn't fully fund, we might have part funded, but we don't know now what will come from one party or what will come from another, or we don't know if we need to be presenting to them. There are other aspects of the project that they would be able to support, like seating or signage, so on and so forth. So the situation that we just need to try and manage for next week is the council next week going to be voting on the £8,000, or will it be saying it would be part of that £8,000? Because it would just be helpful for us when talking to the other funders about that, because they were to an extent going to be looking to see what happened tonight. Clearly, what happened tonight will have a bearing on whatever conversation you guys have at Arms Houses on Wednesday, because you won't know on Wednesday now whether the parts are covered by the town or not. So you won't know if you were looking at that funding, what it would be for, and we won't be able to tell you what it would be for because we don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and only if I need to pose this, I can just say this as it's been deferred essentially for next week, but I would like to put on that. The proposal would be that Melksham Town Council cover the entire £7,988.40 for what has been put together. That's what I would like the motion to be next week for discussion, not part of it. The full amount, that doesn't mean we're going to do it. That's what I would put the motion as. Do I need to officially pose that? Can we just check it on next week? Well, I think propose that's the motion. So that's what the motion will be next week.
Thank you.
Do you have any more comments on that before we
Makes sense, yes.
move on? I think that's fair. All right, thank you very much. And thank you very much, Carl, for coming. I do appreciate it, and hope you. Yeah, I hope you've got a taste for it again. See you next year.
Welcome back. Can I just ask, there's quite a few from the Arms House charity. Do you want me to come along on Wednesday?
Can I email you later?
Email later tonight. I'll pick up tomorrow, Pat, though. All right. Thanks, guys.
Like checking windows.
Right, I will not do that. I've got my invitation on. Right, cheers all. Stop.
Cheers.
Oh, we've lost them, have we? We'll get back on track with the actual agenda then. Item 12, change of date of the meeting. There's been some proposal to change some dates of the meeting. I believe that to reflect the budget setting. That is from finance on the 9th of September. Are there any comments on this?
Propose.
Second, Andrew, brilliant. All in favour? Against? Abstentions? Thank you very much.
Can I just make an ask through you, Chair?
Yes.
That now that we've finished changing all of the appointment dates for the remainder of the year, could we have an updated schedule circulated?
Please, yeah.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Including next week.
Item 13. CCTV update on matters arising from CCTV and the CCTV and community working group. With this, a relatively large item at the moment, I do think it's important to state, we need to discuss ultimately the CCTV policies that have been adopted. So I think that's relevant to be discussing to an extent. We need to find out exactly where we are with CCTV, because let's not forget that very recently there was actually a knife crime in the town in which we never had coverage to support the police in their investigation, which is quite terrifying, really. So I'll leave it open to the floor for discussion on CCTV matters. Yeah, John.
Thank you, Chair. This is actually on the agenda because I asked for it. Because I unfortunately was away when the CCTV was on the agenda. And I understand that discussion took place on it. I've subsequently seen some stuff going around about it. And I was a bit concerned that I think that there is increasingly a gap between the reality of things and what is being talked about as to where we are on the CCTV. So could I give the council an update on where we are on things with CCTV as of this afternoon? Okay. So the new cameras in the marketplace, which is the existing PTZ dome, which is connected to the network video recorder, and so on and so forth, all in, all operational, fully operational, good to go. Someone can go back and look at shots from those as of, well, before now, but that's their working. The two cameras on the junction of Marketplace with Spa Road, the camera on King Street, the two cameras in King Street car park, and the two cameras on Stratton's Road, okay, are all installed. Okay, they are not yet, though, fully operational. The reason they are not fully operational is because a restriction has now been placed on the contractor that they can't have access into the town hall out of hours. One of the challenges is the contractor's permit for undertaking street works is, as is quite common with these things where it causes disruption to traffic, they can only undertake such works after 6:30 in the afternoon. So we've now placed a burden on the contractor that they have to go out, think they've pointed the camera in the right direction, but then they're not allowed to check it until they can book an appointment to come in during working hours to look at it. Because we've taken away the keys that they'd have for goodness knows how long as a preferred contractor with the council to be able to come and undertake the works. So any delays that there now are on those 7 cameras being made fully operational are just down to us, because we've placed that new hurdle in the contractor's way. The Bath Road car park, the new link from the skate park and the toilet block, that has been replaced and is fully operational, no delays or anything on that. The KGV park, the link from there coming up through the church, that is now fully operational and is all working. So basically the only outstanding works that are remaining now are those 7 cameras. And basically the reason why those 7 cameras haven't been done is because we've told the contractor that whilst they have had, I don't know how many years experience of being able to come in and work out of hours, including when free of charge during our Christmas lights, they're no longer permitted that access and can only come in during working hours. And that obviously is putting a substantial pressure on them being able to complete those works. So that is where things are as per this afternoon.
Andrew.
We've not mentioned High Street, Bank Street. Where there were a significant number of cameras.
My belief is that they are up, but they're not mentioned. I'm just reading in case it comes into one of these paragraphs. So Stratton's Walk is 2, one of each column, one at each end of Stratton's Walk, King Street, Car Park, King Street, Junction of Marketplace with Spa Road. That's at this end, isn't it? So that's 2 new ones there. I don't know off the top of my head, but I'll send a text message now and see if I can get an answer.
I've not observed anything going on or newly installed.
We would do some on Bank Street, weren't we? We would do some on Bank Street.
Yes, there were a few down Bank Street leading down to down towards the north, the southern end of Bath Road, and certainly there were several through the High Street, one on the junction with Lowbourne, and certainly another looking down Edenport and Precinct.
Not on the list I've been given, but I've just asked the question.
One thing I would say, it's a bit frustrating, seems a bit out of the ordinary that it's great that you have the update, John. It would be nice for council to have the update from the contractor.
Has the council asked?
I mean, yes. But it's a bit, you know, if they sent you saying, oh, I would expect it to come to council because it'd be.
But this is because I asked it specifically.
Okay, but I also asked, but regardless of that, okay, 1 second. I do believe a member public will come in, so I'll spend standing orders for the second for a comment, and then we'll continue the meeting. Right, seconder, Jenny, all in favour? Thank you very much. Jeff.
Can I just ask, can you just run back over, John, how many total cameras there are to be installed? How many have now been installed? And how many are still to be installed? And how many of those that are installed are currently operating?
Well, I can only go by, on the report I've got in front of me, I'll tell you exactly what it says. Marketplace, 3 new cameras in place, and the existing PTZ dome connected to the new network video recorder. All fully operational. Junction of Marketplace with Spa Road, Junction of Marketplace with Spa Road, 2 new cameras installed, but not yet operational because they haven't been, the line of sight stuff and all the rest of it hasn't been able to be confirmed with the PVR. King Street, 1 new camera installed. King Street car park, 2 new cameras installed. Stratton's Walk, 2 new cameras installed on each of 2 columns, 1 column at each end. So, 2 new cameras installed on each of 2 columns, so 4 cameras in total, 1 at each end. So 2 cameras on each column, effectively, and that also
2 cameras on each column.
yes,
2 points.
and there's 2 columns, so 4 cameras in total, and that also acts as a relay antenna base for Church Street, High Street, and a link back to the town hall. The Bath Road car park, the link from the skate park, and all the rest of it back goes to Evie's Cafe, and then back is now all operational, and the cameras down there. And then the 10, I don't know how, because those cameras were already existing, so they're not new ones. But the link is new because the link only used to go to the pavilion, but it now comes back to the control room downstairs.
Yeah.
So that improves its usability. And the 10 new cameras in the park.
The park's separate, because that was a separate thing.
Yes. Well, when we
When this was all put together, these were 2 separate things.
there was funding for 8 cameras in the park, which was funded separately. It's ended up with 10 going in there at no additional cost to the council, as I understand it.
I'm just, sorry, do forgive me, council, I apologise, I'm just trying to get my head around the number. When this was initially brought to council, can the council just tell me how many cameras were supposed to be installed?
John, do you recall what the original?
I'm just trying to see if I can access the motion on this machine. Unfortunately, my laptop ceased working and my iPad doesn't have the same access to my network at home.
Just so we can continue the meeting, we will send that to you as soon as we have that information, Joe.
Thank you.
I don't want to be waiting on for that. I'll reinstate standing order speaking to continue the meeting. Seconder, Andrew, all in favour? Brilliant, thank you very much. If I just a few points on there, I understand maybe the frustration with the out of hours, but I personally think it's the only proper way to be in this council, in just my own opinion. One, health and safety wise, I don't think it's good practice to have anyone in here up until midnight on their own in case anything happened, even if it's 2 people. As town council, I feel we would be responsible for anyone in this building if anyone got hurt or anything happened. Equally, we do have sensitive information in this building. So regardless, even if it means it's going to be delayed, that's frustrating. I still think it's the right decision to not have people in here at hours when no one's here. And that is my own personal opinion. I can't talk about the council. Myself, that's what I feel is the right way forward. There's a few things on it I would like to say. So it's great that the KGV CQ has now been done. I understand, so I spoke to the contractor myself and they believe there are reasons for it, but 1 or 2 cameras are in different places to what the proposal was when it came to council. Now, the reason for that is apparently because the original proposal that came to council was clearly illustrative and a rough idea of where the cameras would be. So all I would want is, once all the CCTV is done, equally in town, we engage with the police, which I have done already slightly, to ensure that they're happy with the coverage. Because if the cameras aren't in the exact place we agreed as council, I'm not saying that's necessarily a problem, but we need to make sure we're getting the coverage we need. So once all this is done, I'd like to hope we engage with the police to ensure they're happy with the coverage we're getting, purely because some of the placements and cameras are different to what the proposal was. There's a little bit on the CCTV policy that I want to discuss, but I want to see if anyone else firstly has any comments to make on what we spoke about. I'll come to you after John, you've already spoken. Jenny.
My only concern out of what you just said there, John, and again, I mean, thank you for reading that out. I do think it should have come to full council. Is you mentioned that he can complete the work until after 6:30. That's the first I've heard of that, and we have asked repetitive questions around this.
Mm-hmm.
The first time we've heard you can't complete any work until after 6:30 is today. That's a concern for me because I don't quite understand why we've not been told that before, because it may have changed some of the conversations that took place. That's not at me having to go at anybody. I just think that there seems to be that we're only getting bits of information instead of getting an overview of everything in one go and in one place. I equally have some stuff on policy, so I don't know if you want to bring your stuff up first. Oh, other people want to talk.
If we bring everything, we do policy at the end, potentially, it's not actually on the agenda, but we can still discuss it, but we do policy at the end, because I don't want it to be mixed up with lots of different elements of CCTV.
Yeah, that's fine.
John, you want to come in?
Well, I just wanted to come in on two things, Chair. First of all, I've been trying to get, and I've been asking for a meeting of the CCTV working group, which was one of the few working groups that we said would survive when at full council there was a proposal to dump all of them since annual council, and it has not happened. And I think if we had had that meet, where there could have been perhaps some more constructive and less personal conversations with all sides involved in this, we probably wouldn't be in the position we are now. I think it very regrettable that we are where we are now. And I think that no individual or no side is to blame for that. I think probably both sides have been as bad as each other, if you want an honest opinion. I asked for this item to come on the agenda of Andrew just before he went on holiday, because I was just fed up of hearing a load of stuff from one side and a load of stuff from the other side. And to be perfectly honest with you, it was very, very clear that people just weren't listening to each other. I do have to say, I'm not involved in the CCT industry directly, although it crosses over with a lot of the network work and telecoms work that I am involved in. I have never, in my professional career, never had a client withdraw access to me from a building in the way that it was withdrawn from our contractor in the whole of my career, and nor was anybody I know. I hold access cards to have unfettered access to people's head offices in London to be able to go and do stuff on their networks, because to do a lot of the work you need to do, you can only do it when people aren't around, because otherwise you're causing too much disruption to what happens. And that unfettered access isn't just in terms of physical access to the building. It could be remote access into their computer systems, which for what I do, I would need more than perhaps what our supplier would need. But I just can't get over to colleagues on the council enough. It is the norm that people who are providing those sorts of services are given out of hours access to be able to go in and do the work. If they don't have that, they cannot do the work. Sometimes, if they're going to come in and do stuff, they're going to need to switch networks off. If you switch the network off, how does our staff carry on with their day-to-day work? Sometimes you might need to switch the electric off. If you switch the electric off, how does our staff carry on with its day-to-day work? And the message we send when we say that there's all sorts of sensitive stuff around, what we're actually saying is we can't trust these people who have worked for this council for 15, 16 years, maybe more, because they've been doing it as long as I've been on this council, and they were preferred suppliers when I got here, who have, in their own time, at no cost, supplied our Christmas lights and worked on our Christmas lights for how many years? And we're turning around, we're saying these people are untrustworthy.
All due respect there, John, I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's right. And it's not saying any individual is untrustworthy. I guess as a rule, it's nothing against any individual company, any individual person for me personally. And I don't think it's appropriate to make out like we're purposely saying to an individual that we don't trust you. It's not about that. It's having certain policies in place, and we don't have a loan working policy for subprime, and we need to work on that. But the point is, even if you think it's a normal way of working, I don't think it is. I don't think many councillors here think it is. And the way you're spinning it is quite unprofessional. It's quite unfair. I'm not standing up here and saying I don't trust our supplier. That is not the right thing. That's not what I feel. It's not what anyone here has said. But you kind of put that into our mouths. I don't think that's fair in any way. It's about having certain policies in place that we don't have people in the office on their own. And yeah, for security reasons, but it's also to protect them so there can never be any doubt. It isn't because I think they're going to go and rooting around, but no one should have that isn't employed by the council, have that kind of access to anything. I trust you, but I'm sure a bank wouldn't trust you in a vault. Don't mean that they think you're going to go and do everything, but it means there's a policy in certain ways of working that protect everyone. So personally, I don't think that's a fair point. I just want to make that very clear. Are there any comments on that from anyone else?
Look, well, obviously, one of the pieces we are waiting for an update on is actually how the system works, so that you can allow access to certain areas, so that this then mitigates some of that issue. I would hope we would have that information from
Yeah, I've asked you for that, so I'll just.
estimate that. That would probably perhaps be useful to know by Monday, because, you know, I get both sides of the story. We certainly, where I work, allow contractors on site without staff members being present. Absolutely not. Again, I disagree with you on that. I've worked in plenty of places. But I do also agree that, you know, we do need to find a way to make this work and get CCTV up and running, make sure things are okay for Christmas lights. But we do also need the contractors to talk back to us. And at the moment, there isn't a two-way conversation going on here.
I do have some points and policy, but any more comments at this time on CCTV? So personally on policy, the policy is meant to come back to town council today to be approved. We don't have that, so we can't necessarily do that, but we can still make recommendations for it to be updated, for it to then come back to a following council to be approved as CCTV is on the agenda. I met up with Gemma Rutter recently, as I felt, and we were getting that kind of comment by residents, by people, that, you know, we might necessarily know exactly the right way to do it. We don't know the correct process to do it. So I sat down with the police recently. I asked them what they felt the correct way to manage our CCTV was. And a few things they have shared with me, and a few things that we have already got in our policy, so if I share them now. One is having the certain nominated people who could access CCTV, which I believe we discussed before, which we have 2 individuals that go off on training. They felt that it should only be accessed if the police request access. Now, maybe the ones that are nominated and trained to do so can do so without the police present, but they need to be requested by the police to be able to access it, which I think is a fair way to do this. They asked within, so it's a monitor system isn't something this council ever wanted to do, that's something that I support, want to do. But they have asked if there could be something in the policy, which I do support through the police suggesting it, that the police on occasion, and only through approval from this council, can do the odd bit of live monitoring to the system if they want to do a sting or they want to do some kind of survey with the CCTV, but it has to be approved by council still. They've asked that can be in the policy that there can be monitoring, but only with the police present, and that'd be not involved in any of our staff. That'd be only the police doing the monitored CCTV when we approve it. They agree that they felt there'd be absolutely no need, and I don't know if this isn't our system, but absolutely no need for remote access, because the only way we're viewing it is through our staff members going in with the authorization by the police. And that was the crux of the discussion I had with Gemma Rutter, and I fully support those things. I want to suggest, if they're not already in the policy, that'd be going forward eventually, they are added to the policy. But I'm here, welcome to hear everyone else's discussion, thoughts on it, but that's where my thought currently is about. Jenny.
But I'll speak.
We can stop doing a little bit of that.
I agree with everything you've just said. I think my biggest one on it is security and remote access, and I will admit I don't know anywhere near as much about IT security as yourself, John. But it's something I'm relatively hot on, and everyone I know in it heavily recommend not having remote access for CCTV based around what it's used for. And for the police to set passwords is the other thing that I've been given advice on. That's it.
So I say we can't vote on a policy today because it hasn't come to us, and again, we would have a discussion earlier, we couldn't vote on something that wasn't here. John?
Two things, Chair, if I might. There was nothing policy-wise that I would disagree with that you were saying, other than with regards to remote access into the system. It is likely that, and if we don't have, I'd be very surprised, that we will have a long-term support contract with somebody with regards to if something goes wrong, if something on the system isn't working correctly, then we want someone who we can pick the phone up to and say, hang on a minute, when we choose camera 2, we get camera 6 showing or something like that, okay? In today's world, that person will want remote access as part of that support contract because 99% of how the whole thing is managed is software. Okay, you've got computers there running applications, you tell the applications what to do, and they do it. You can, however, restrict access into the system, and this should be in what I would recommend is in the policy as a way of doing this. You can restrict access into the system so it is only from identified IP addresses, which basically means it can only somebody from a particular location with a particular IP address is able to remote into the system. Anyone else would be rejected at the door. And then that way you can have the advantages of remote support, which can solve matters within minutes, but you still want the security of people not being able to access into the system. The other thing we should be insisting on is two-factor authentication for anybody going in there. And actually that two-factor authentication should not rely on text messages. Text message for two-factor authentication is about as secure as writing it on the back of your hand and carrying it around with you. It's so easy to hijack a mobile for purposes of text messaging. But if they're using an authenticator app, then you're more protected. And one thing I forgot to say earlier on, but I think it's important to say, is that I do recognise that there's been some discussion about positioning of the cameras. The important thing that was identified when we were going through the procurement stage on them was the coverage that was wanted. And sometimes when the cameras have gone up, in order to gain the coverage that was asked for, the cameras have actually been placed in different locations in order to achieve that coverage, because there are factors that you just don't know about until you're putting it up there. Or indeed, you just realise you perhaps got it wrong. But what I am confident of is the coverage the town is getting is what was asked for. The cameras may not be on the poles identified in the proposal documents, because until you put them up there, you don't know for sure what you're going to achieve and get. And you've got to recognise that the ability of these things to be able to pan and zoom nowadays, even the fixed ones, is quite amazing. So sometimes a pole away doesn't mean that you've got that much less vision, because you can come in on there and see it in ways which you wouldn't know.
Thank you, Phil.
As everyone knows, I wasn't a huge fan of the cameras from the outset, but I do think, so I'm not going to get too caught up in this element of discussion right now, but I did want to just flag up, and I'm sure it was a mistake, John, but I think you mentioned that Alex was involved in the Christmas lights. I think the Christmas lights are done by Paul Weymouth, and I don't even think he uses his own company like Fantastic. My understanding is there's no connection between those two. Yeah. Alex hasn't been involved.
Alex has been very heavily involved in it.
I don't think he has, but I mean that would worth just clarifying, because we're in danger of conflating those two. And but the Christmas light guys don't come into the town council for anything either, do they?
No.
As I understand, so I think it's worth just flagging that.
Thank you very much. I mean, what seems a sensible way to go forward now is for these recommendations we will discuss here go into the policy. I would support pretty much everything. The only thing I would personally, not saying I wouldn't support it, then. But at the moment I'm still a bit concerned about, I know you said, allow some sort of remote access. I don't know whether, that may be the right way. I don't know whether that is the right or wrong way, so I'd have to just get some expert advice on what they think is appropriate. If it is, that's great. But that's the only thing they're discussed here that I would be like, I'm pretty happy with everything about that. Not because I think we shouldn't, I just don't know. And I don't want to start making decisions and agreeing on stuff I don't know, because I think it's imperative that we get this right. We've had such an investment in CCTV in this town, and that's mainly thanks to your motion coming forward, John. So I want to thank you for that. But I want to make sure we're getting that policy bang on. Otherwise, what was it? What was the point of it? Jenny now, Jim.
Just adding to your comment, John, it's also possible, if IP address access is restricted, you can also switch that on or off for a time slot. So
Indeed,
if they
you can.
don't access, you say, yes, we'll switch on the access at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and it will switch off at 6 o'clock. So that it's not open at any time.
Absolutely.
Okay. There's no proposal to have, there's no real proposal we can put in, but what Tracy will then do is the discussion we've had here primarily around the policy can then be put into a draft policy that we can then bring to council and actually either maybe amend, tweak a little bit more and hopefully adopt eventually. But primarily this was a discussion of CCTV that you wanted to bring on to council, John, and I think it's been a fair discussion. Bringing CCTV to an end, we will allow the public to come and talk on this item before we move on. So I will like to suspend standing orders. Do I have a seconder? Jack, all in favour? Brilliant. Joe.
Sorry, as we're on CCTV, has there been any update as to the recording equipment that was in the town hall? And it was discussed at a meeting, and there was discussion around the fact that that had been some sort of pro quo type discount deal on the cameras. And I didn't know if there was any update on that. So I know that it was discussed, it would come back, and it kind of never did, and I didn't know if there was an update at all on that.
Do we have an
Where that is kicked off.
We don't have an update on that yet, Joe, I'm afraid. Sorry about that. Okay, reinstate standing orders. Andrew, all in favour? Brilliant, thank you very much. Right, thank you for that, everyone. I know that was a little bit difficult, but an important discussion to have. Item 15, pilot to trial the legal walls in Wiltshire, for the underpass. To note and for discussion, do we have any comments on this? Yes. Jenny, Phil. Go on, Phil.
I only say, we've discussed this before, I think, and certainly at the area board, I made my reservations clear. I mean, I know that a lovely walk can be a beautiful artistic thing. I know everyone's quite, but I've held reservations from the outset that there's a real risk this can spill over, and it just will, dare I say, encourage graffiti. And there has been a spate on that recently, and that was always my fear that it would stimulate that further graffiti in and around the town. However, I've been given quite extensive assurances that that's not going to happen, or if it does happen, more importantly, there's going to be a series of monitoring in place during the programme where we'll be looking at graffiti and we can see whether there's been an increase in graffiti, and if there is an increase in this graffiti or it's spilling out anywhere else, I have been reassured that the under those circumstances the scheme will be brought to an end. I was also given quite comprehensive assurances that the wall will be monitored as well by the organisation involved, because I was deeply concerned about political slogans, offensive material, and other such things just being randomly sprayed on the wall alongside tagging and all the rest of it. But again, I've been assured that that's not going to happen, and it will be more of an artistic canvas than just a messy wall for anyone to throw some junk in. So, got to give it a go. So I'm quite happy to support this, and with the caveats that we'll be watching it closely and seeing the wider impact on the.
Thank you, Phil. Jenny.
I'm really happy with doing something down there because I'm, you know, having been on the council and heard 3 proposals already for what should be down there. Although I am very disappointed that our proposals were never taken to Wiltshire Council. It's not a slight on Wiltshire Council, I should say. But yeah, I have to weirdly say, and I can't believe I'm saying this in public, I somewhat agree with Phil. Yeah, I know, can you believe it, Phil? I am very much in favour of.
Lots of people do.
Something of this side of the building.
There's a support group, you can join.
Thanks. My only concern obviously is any sort of gratuitous language and things like that, but given that they said that that will be monitored, I'm slightly more in favour of being a community art project. However, I'm very happy to support anything going on that makes the town prettier. Is that the right word? More fun, helpful for the youth. Inclusive, great word, Safi, great word, that's the one. But yeah, I am slightly upset that our proposals for it, considering we had 3 people who came and gave very good presentations to the town council, never taken forward.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, as you all know, and I've been banging on about this since I first came on to council in 2021 about wanting to do something with the underpass and particularly around really good high quality graffiti. I've done a lot of looking into these community projects and things, and actually because people own it, they police it really well themselves, and this has certainly been in large parts of the UK and across Europe as well. It's a really, really big thing. I just really hope we do get behind it and actually finally make something happen with this.
Graham, John, and then we've got Pat.
I mean, long overdue to do something about the subway. You know, so sadly I can go back many years even before you were on the council there, and yes, it looks good, it looks sensible. I did find myself reading through the stuff in the agenda and looking at all this with the various rules about you won't do this and you will do that. I'm thinking, hang on, these are people who have been putting up stuff utterly free, and then here they are saying, please stick with these. However, I think it's very likely, very possible they will, and it's something that we should do, but be taking that opportunity that, you know, this is not 100% guaranteed to work, this is 80%, let's make sure it works, but let's be prepared for a risk if it's there. And yes, that subway desperately needs something doing about it. It was repainted in, I believe it was 2014, from the previous graphics that were there to white paint for a project for us to do. And I believe you me, putting white paint on a subway is an invitation, isn't it? So let's move on from that.
John.
The very first meeting of Melksham Town Council that I attended in September 2008, I recollect there being 2 items on the agenda. One was the CCTV. The other was potential artwork for the subway.
It's taking you 16 years, Jack.
So it's wonderful seeing both of these items coming to fruition. But in all seriousness, as many have said, you know, we've talked about this goodness knows how many times. Something is actually happening here. We've actually got Wiltshire Council taking proactive action, being the driving force on this. I think the important thing to note on this, and Saki touched on this in what she quite rightly said, is this is not some off the cuff thing that's taking place. This is a national scheme that has been being run, that has been fine-tuned, that has been worked on for many years and has been highly successful. And it's a real opportunity for us to be able to bring that into our community. And from what evidence I have seen on this, and I haven't read it as extensively as you, Safri, but from what evidence I have seen on this and heard when talking to people from other communities where these projects have happened, actually instances of illegal graffiti within those communities has reduced, because what you're actually doing is, by denying anything in a community, you are rejecting an art form. By saying, here's some designated areas for it, you're actually giving that art form acceptance and credence. And actually, they prefer to see it done properly than to. So I really don't have a problem with this. I think that it's a really exciting opportunity for the town, and I think could really help with what we have down there. I'm now going to take my life into my own hands and state the next thing's at risk. But one of the things we may want to consider as we get further to it actually going live and all the rest of it is, now that the infrastructure is in place towards that end of town with the repeaters coming up through the church and Sainsbury's and all the rest of it, it wouldn't take very much work to put cameras onto the underpass as well. And we may want to look, yes, I know, but we may want to look to protect that land and for it to be seen to be being protected. But I didn't bring enough protective clothing with me to debate that one this evening, so perhaps we can come back to that on another occasion.
Thank you very much, John. Pat.
I'd just like to put Phil's mind at rest. The graffiti that has been appearing around the town is, as far as I'm concerned, mindless vandalism. But what we're proposing for the underpass is, as somebody pointed out when they said was it you, John, about taking ownership of it? It'll be a totally different ballgame, I hope.
Yeah, I think hopefully it'll be more community canvas than the graffiti.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, this is just to note, as it's not something we're doing ourselves. Are there any more comments? Or is there anything to propose to be added to this? Andrew and John?
Just looking, the final line on page 41 says no politics. I think there should also be no religion.
First of all, second that. I think that's a sensible suggestion, and I think that's a recommendation we should pass back. But I think that's a de facto thing. They probably just said no politics because then there's a bunch of politicians sat in the room making the decision. But I would echo that. But Chair, if we might, I'd like us to do something slightly stronger than just note this report. I'd like us to accept this report and recommend that the project proceeds. Because I think that we will be active partners in the delivery of this, not be seen as reluctant acceptors of what's going on in our backyard.
Would you like to propose that then?
So proposed, Chair.
I would have Sappy seconding it. But any more comments this time? Okay, we'll go to the bit then. All in favour? Unanimous. Fantastic. Thank you very much, everyone. Item 16, something I wanted to bring to council for discussion. Town hall opening hours. So this is just to, for me, I've been reevaluating when we open, and we're currently closed on a Friday. And I really feel we should be opening on a Friday, essentially. Fridays tend to be, if there's a day people finish work early, tends to be on a Friday. If we want to be increasing the amount of people who are engaged in council, who want to come and speak to us at council, maybe not us, but officers, ask questions, I see no reason why we should be closing on a Friday, which is potentially going to be quite a heavy day for people to come in. I no longer see a real reason to close on Friday. I believe a big aspect of that originally was due to toil, because we had a situation where unfortunately our officers were being put in a position where they had to bring up a horrendous amount of toil, and it was becoming impossible for them to take that back. It wasn't fair on them, but we're now in a place where we're managing the hours a little bit better, well, a lot better, and we're not in the same situation. We have multiple people with 50, 60, 70 hours worth of toil build up. So for me now, I see no reason why we cannot start opening on a Friday, and that's kind of the discussion I wanted to bring today. John and Phil.
In principle, when we're fully up staff again, I don't have an objection to what you're suggesting, Chair. I would ask that perhaps we could defer this and come back to it after Christmas, when we've gone through the induction process with the new staff, they're in board and they're settled in post, because the reason we ended up in the position that we were in was because of, once you chuck a couple of meetings in and all the rest of it, it just wasn't possible for people to be able to cover the office with 2 people at least in there at all times, 9 till 5, and do all the meetings that we needed them to do. So we were ending up with, now, we could say, well, we've employed these new people and we can be back up and running straight away. But we know that there's an induction people we need to go through. We know that there's a get up to speed period that people need to go through. So what all I would ask is, can we come back to this in January? Because our staff will all be up to speed by then. But the other thing I think that we do need to take into account is, and I know it's because they've only got 3 staff, and I recognise that difference, but it's how many staff you have present at your meetings. And, you know, there's a reason why the parish are closed on a Friday, and it's because to make sure they don't end up drowning in toil. I don't know if I'm allowed to use the women in the chamber or not, but Patsy, who's working at Warminster now, the policy of that council is that if you are attending an evening meeting, you are not allowed to turn up to work for 1 o'clock that day, because it's recognised that you know, in order to cover those toils, and they adjust their office hours accordingly to manage that. So I'm saying my heart is with what you're asking for. But can we make sure we can manage it before we leave in and do it? And look at what happens between now and Christmas. Make sure the new staff are all settled in. And if in the new year the clerk's saying to us, yes, I'm confident we can manage 5 days a week, that proposal will come back to council. If there's a doubt about it, then it doesn't stop us from discussing it still, but we're doing so from an informed basis.
A good Phil, but I would just, as someone brought it, just to come back on that, I hear you. Just quite frankly, I just disagree. I think we do have the capacity to start opening on Fridays, and it's just a pure bit of disagreement between me and you there.
Yeah, well, I do agree. We should open Fridays. I mean, I have no objection to us opening for a half day on a Friday morning. I think it's up to the clerk to manage the staff. But obviously with the new the recruitment's taking place in new starters, I would like it built in that there's an expectation that's being, you know, making sure that feeds through into their normal working hours and so on. There's an expectation they're in the office, and obviously people are, it's down to you and you manage your team, but we don't open Fridays. And if there is an issue still, I mean, certainly I don't see it open Friday morning, or a half day at some point in the week. I know Wednesdays. So some shops still operate half days on a Wednesday in Melbourne. But you know, I would like to see us move in that direction.
When you start up convention, only have Andrew and Hugh in possibly on Friday.
Hugh is always in, he's still doing assembly and stuff.
Yeah,
sometimes it's me.
Graham?
As I was just going to come in, thanks for this. I mean, I'm broadly in support of it on a Friday, but at the same time, just making sure that we don't overload the staff, that we don't go from one problem to another. Now, Fridays in particular, we're closed 3 days in succession, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. No proposal for me to open over the weekend, don't worry. But one of the things that we do is a lot of shows on Friday night and Saturday, and we are now the booking agency because we're no longer opening the Assembly Hall. So Friday is likely to be a particularly busy day for bookings and last minute tickets and things like that. So I'd like to see it on the Friday. I do recall seeing a proposal at one point to close on Wednesday afternoons. I don't know what happened to that. But that was something that came up within the last year. I think one of the committees was suggesting that the town would be closed on a Wednesday afternoon for staff training. I wouldn't actually object to being closed on possibly Tuesday and Wednesday afternoons or something like that, so that we're there at the beginning of the week, all week. One of the other things that came up last time, this came up as a proposal, was to say, what about people who do work a 9 till 5 day still? How do they get in? And since we have a meeting almost every Monday evening to have a session open on Monday, so we have 9 sessions a week rather than 10. And I can draw that up and write that up for people if you like. Forgive me, I only got the information on this a little bit earlier today. sense can be made of that, but make it clear to the public. Now, the other thing we got through within the last few hours was actually a log of what people come into the town council for. And that's a fascinating study of why they're coming in, are we the right place for them to come to? And in so many of those cases, we're actually not the right people for them to come to. However, we are here as the representative of all the various councils in the community, so we need to be there for that there. Another question here, and this is possibly for the clerk. Do we have, no, that was a log, this was a log of the people who walked into the town hall. Do we have a similar log of telephone calls, and when are we open for telephone calls?
On the tab at the bottom.
Sorry?
The tab at the bottom, calls.
It was a separate tab, was there?
Yeah.
Are there anyone else got any comments this time? Yes, Jack?
No, just that, you know the staffing situation better than anyone, Chair, being Chair of the Personnel Committee, is that what we call it? So if you're saying that we have capacity to staff on Friday, then I think we should be open on Friday. I mean, I keep forgetting we are closed on Friday, to be honest, and there was somewhere I didn't pop in on a Friday, that was it. So I would like to see it open full time. We've done it, like you say, back then because there was a higher amount of toil that was built up, and we had to sort something out at that time. So Mr. Mayor was saying that we've got full capacity to staff on Friday, and I think we should have staff on Friday. Don't know what happened to my voice then when I said Friday.
I can't talk on behalf of faculty. It's just my opinion. We have the capacity. I feel we do. So what I personally would like to see next step, I accept we have a few people starting shortly. I still think I don't think we need to wait personally till next year to start this. I would like to see we start opening on a Friday. I would still say a full day. I'd say a half day on a Friday for me it doesn't quite work because a lot of people finish early on a Friday. But closing at 12 isn't going to make much difference. And equally, something I noticed, which I've seen as well, Brennan, is ticket sales. People do come to the town hall for ticket sales, and I would assume a Friday be a relatively busy day for ticket sales for the Assembly Hall shows.
Certainly on the Assembly Hall shows, where we're promoting, where we're saying this particular show has not sold well, hey, come along, book a ticket. To have somewhere that people actually go to book it seems to make sense.
But I will chat and ask what locum feels. So I would like to put forward that we start opening full time as of the 15th of October to give people a chance for our new starters to get in. But then we'll also have our deputy clerk. Just in your opinion, do you feel that would be? Yeah, I'll ask if Tracy feels that would be enough. Okay.
Yeah, most of them start, we have the events and community development officers start next Monday on the 30th. And then the deputy clerk, I think, was it the 12th? No. Yeah, they're all starting during October some date, so I was just saying by November we'll definitely have full capacity. It's just a staggered over.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with great to be open fully on Fridays for all reasons said. I do think asking for the middle of November is really optimistic. I think the 1st of November, starting in November, will be much more sensible. Give Tracy time to get her staff in, get people up, leave chairs, inductions, all that stuff done. I'd rather we took a couple of weeks longer and got it right than actually.
One of the key things with a business opening is to make sure that when it states its hours, the public come into those hours, it is actually open. And coming along and finding a sign on the door saying sorry, it was closed today ain't clever.
Yeah, I think it's quite disappointing. In that case then, if you're the one who made the amendment, do you want to propose?
Yeah.
It's okay. So what's your proposal exactly?
If we start opening on Fridays from the beginning of November.
Normal working hours, same as we do Monday to Thursday.
Yeah.
Okay, I would like to second that. Do we have any comments on that before we go to the vote?
Well, I
4:30, not 12 o'clock. Because we work in 37-hour weeks.
Whatever normal working hours are. Yeah.
I don't think that I would win, so I won't push it to a vote, but I really do caution. I think that the principle of what you're wanting to do, Chair, is absolutely spot on. I think we're rushing into it too fast. I think that we've got to give people time to get their feet under the table and to We know how to do things. For a lot of time, we're going to be seeing our new staff buddying up with existing staff in order to learn things. They can't be doing that if one of them's dealing with people at the counter. So, no, sorry, I probably won't even get a seconder, but I am going to move an amendment that we just defer this item until the new year. I don't even mind if we say we'll start open 5 days a week from the new year. I just really do think we've got to give staff time to get their feet under the table and get established, and give the team the opportunity to get ready for this before we just foist it upon them in 30 seconds. So I probably won't get a seconder, but I'm going to move an amendment to start this from January 2005.
I'll second that actually, because I do agree. I think it needs time. I think people need time to get into their roles. I think trying to do anything else too quickly it will be detrimental to the town council, and I think everyone needs that time.
Okay, well, we have two motions forward, so what we'll do is we'll.
Can you just run over what they wrote?
So the first motion's happy, do you wanna?
To start, 5 day opening, from the 1st of November.
Who seconded that one?
I did. And
The amendment is to change that date to the 1st of January 2025.
an amendment or another motion?
No, it's an amendment.
Okay, so that means if Safi needs to agree.
Just,
No, it means that if Safi doesn't agree, we have to take a vote on it.
well, just clarified, that would mean that the 1st, so that actually the 1st of November is a Friday. Yes.
Yes, but also doesn't give much time.
No, I know, but. It's off
Do you accept the amendment?
to, for the,
On the 1st of January.
I'll need to vote to see
yes,
if we
you
get.
vote.
Okay. So all in favour for the amendment from John to change it from the 1st of November to the first Friday of January. All in favour? All opposed? It's not been carried, I'm afraid. So now we'll go on to the original motion from Safi. So to start opening 5 days a week, normal working hours, finish at 4:30 on a Friday. All in favour? All against? And abstentions? That's carried. Thank you very much, guys. Item 17, project management. The latest position on project identified as a priority at the last strategy, task and finish group. Do we have any comments on this currently? No.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on one of the. It's a few of the things around the projects, but some of the suggested next actions, I don't know where they've come from, they seem a little bit, like they've just kind of been thrown together to write something. The reason why I say that is because of the joint cemetery strategy. Okay, so, lots of people have been contacting me and I've spoken with, some people in the burial, sort of burial industry, but a few of the undertakers around town who are concerned, funeral directors, I should say, around town who are concerned about the future of burial space in and around Melksham. I know Melksham without Parish Council, after we contacted them to join a joint working group, wanted to clarify the situation. So they sent an email to Wiltshire Council, they spoke to the head of the estates over there. They had confirmation that Wiltshire Council are not running a cemetery strategy. They have no intention of starting a cemetery strategy. There's no statutory duty on Wiltshire Council to provide cemetery services. And the reason why we've got a few cemetery services in and around West Wales is because that was the old district council. The other areas don't have Wiltshire Council run cemeteries, so there's no intention to replace those. That being the case, the update which is in here is councillors to consider, or the suggested next steps, councillors to consider if this is a better place with WC. We know it's not a better place with WC. We've already had dialogue with Melksham without, who contacted WC and then contacted us afterwards to say, yeah, they would engage and work with us on this task group to explore next steps to try and solve this problem. So what I'm suggesting on this particular project is we actually just get on email Teresa or whatever at the parish council and move that along?
Can I take that?
Yeah.
Firstly, just to explain, yes, to deal with the point of some of the suggested next actions. This has come from the 104, 105 item list that we had at the strategy.
Yeah.
So these are the high priority ones. It's here, so a lot of this is the best that Sarah could do, with the information she had. It's here tonight, leading on from the finance meeting, where there were no project updates, and Councillor Westbrook asked if it would come tonight. I think it was you, wasn't it?
It was me.
Yeah.
I don't know why I look so startled.
Obviously, you'll be aware that this agenda was prepared earlier than normal because I was going on holiday. So this was really the best I could do in the time I had. The reason that is the joint cemetery strategy is not up to date is because it wasn't until I came back from holiday that I received, or I had an email from Teresa, which I think she probably sent while I was on holiday, confirming who they had appointed to the group. So yes, that is out of date, but obviously this was prepared for the updated information available, as is always going to be the case when you prepare the agendas a week and a half in advance. So yes, they now have appointed members. I put them on to the committee, and it's the Task and Finish group, working group. What do we call it? Task and Finish, wasn't it? So it's now just a case of somebody asking for a meeting.
We have the meeting.
You need to put that request to the clerk.
Was that a meeting, please, Melksham without parish council? That's the future cemetery provision in Melksham area. Thank you. Right, okay, now that's that dealt with. What are we being asked to do with this list? Are we being asked to rank it, to screen it, to choose our top 5?
If we let Tracy put it.
So what we're proposing is this is the main list, that we now identify this into the committees, and we take that to each committee. Each time we have a committee meeting, we take along, and then they decide what's their priorities, and we can keep following that through from meetings.
Okay, I'm happy then. I'm happy now.
Sorry, I think Tracy would probably agree that most, obviously, when at the last strategy meeting, you identified these, and then I think Councillor Price said, right, take it away and let's try and sort of get the officers to crystallise it there. But with the improvement in the staffing situation, it shouldn't really be so much of a case of having to say, like, this one we can do, this one needs to be sacrificed. Because, with Hugh, if there is, there's also, I think there's a recruitment, potential recruitment for a duty manager over the Assembly Hall. So you would have 3 of those there. Hugh would draw back from that then. He would be much more available for the operations side of it. So we're sort of getting to a position where you hopefully don't need to sacrifice too much of this. I don't know if Tracy would agree with that.
That's our aim.
Yes.
Very much. John, Andrew,
It's not up and just plenty.
John.
If asking the clerk is all that it takes.
You ready?
I've never seen working group.
Have a meeting of the CCTV working group, because I've certainly asked. Sorry?
I'll arrange that.
Can you see? Can you have one of all of them?
Let's just be mindful of. Not saying they're not all valid, but that's fair.
In case you ever wonder, you're like, granted.
That's how we should do meetings.
I was just wondering, is it practical for this document to be available for viewing? As it's updated?
I believe that's something you were working on.
Sorry. That is entirely down to the fact that Sarah and I haven't met up again yet, but there will be the live version of it, and that's entirely my fault. There is no Sarah is waiting for me. It just went a bit insane, but I'm hoping that we can catch up either this week or next. And it'll take us about half an hour to put it to the live version that I demoed to council recently.
I was just thinking that would help. If things are being updated dynamically, if we get another situation like this, we'll have the update thing, and we won't have, is it 41 open items that Phil was referring to earlier on, but we'll have 30, so.
Okay, thank you. Jenny, is that your hand up?
Me, pick me. Yeah, that really is.
Jenny.
Also, it should go on our website because that was actually what I originally proposed in my proposal a year ago, which means we really need a new website. Which is one of the, which is on here.
That's the last
I
one.
don't know which one it's
Alphabetical.
We're all having a couple of separate
So it
conversations
was
there.
actually online and it should be being made public because
John, sorry.
SharePoints are great, but websites are better at getting information over to the grand public of people. SharePoints are great for us.
Graham and then John wants to come back in.
Jenny, the matrix is on the public website, it's in the agenda for tonight. But I agree,
It is.
but I agree that it really would be useful for it to be there at a standard point, at a standard frequency. And preferably not on 4 pages, between 43 and 47.
Sorry, I think Jack, with your hand up been up before, I haven't noticed.
Well, yeah, it has been up, but then I've been fiddling with my pen, so it's kind of a mix. So I just asked my colleague, but sorry, I don't know why I called you colleague. I just asked Councillor Alford. So tonight we're just noting this. Is it? No, it's not my boss. We're just noting this tonight because, like I say, the committees are actually already there in the document. So
Yeah, they are.
so it's actually really good to just have it there.
Yeah, it is, but it's still good to have the discussion because it's the first time we've been able to kind of look at it like this.
Right. Okay.
But we did John and then Victoria wants to come in.
It was my understanding, and I thought we ratified this or clarified this when I did the presentation of the team's version of this, that this document was not one that was proposed to be one that was for the public and never should be one that goes to the public. If we did that, officers are not going to tell the truth when they write stuff in it, not because they're pathological liars, but because they would be scared to write certain things in there because of the comeback that there would be on them for it. This needs to be an internal document that officers can actually use as part of their project management and day-to-day use. If it becomes a separate document that we ask them to take time to go and update on top of everything else they do, it won't end up working properly. So I would urge with every possible fibre of my being that this document is not something, certainly in its entirety, which is put onto the website. Because the information is being stored within the SharePoint subsystem, it is possible to query against it, and it would be therefore possible for certain information from this to be put on a public website or into public view, but certainly not the whole document as it stands. I would urge against that with every fibre of my being.
Thanks, Tracy, you want to come in?
Firstly, I was going to say that I agree with John, and the aim is that once we get more staff in there, more IT literate, and we'll have it on SharePoint so that members and staff can access it, and obviously officers can update it live. And also, I do agree with John. I do have concerns about one, putting this on the website because it just becomes a static document. And two, it's a little way of micromanaging the stuff. We're already going to report it to the committees and council for us to do. You don't show everything that you're doing totally to the public. They should be aware of the projects, but I don't agree that you put the whole report on, have a list of stuff we're working on.
Yeah, that was always the plan. It was never to have anything in this detail. It was always that the public just were made aware of projects we were working on and the current steps we were at, not to have full detail. Because I agree, it shouldn't be this detailed.
Well, I think it's we're getting somewhere with it. We've also got a meeting now, Phil, so
Yeah,
I think we'll comment on this, but it is just note it. like Jack mentioned.
Can I just comment further?
Yeah, of course, can Graham.
Being in a public document, I've had a lot of questions coming up. I've pointed various people to that public document on my blog. That's just a statement there, but I will put a note onto that there. That's a one shot and it won't be repeated.
Thank you very much. Anything else? Brilliant. Noted. Item 18, committee minutes. To receive the minutes of the Asset and Amenities Committee meeting held on the 10th of June. Any comments? Brilliant. To receive the ECDev and Planning Committee. And to receive a Finance and Performance Committee. Anyone, anything? Brilliant. Thank you very much. Lastly, item 19, the neighbourhood plan. So to receive an update from the town council representatives of the group. Pat and Graham, I believe. Do we have an update?
Well, we need to
Go on,
say,
Pat.
you probably know about that, Tom. The consultation has been completed and we are going to shortly, as a town council, be asked to accept the recommendations and the improvements, one thing and another that's been made to the neighbourhood plan too. And I believe in place of myself, who can't go that night, you are going to be present and will be able to report back to the next meeting.
I will be present on behalf of you, Pat. Thank you very much for tagging me in. I do appreciate it.
I know you do. Sincerity, please.
Graham, anything?
It's going to say this is, if you like, one of those sort of big decision meetings
Yes.
coming up this Wednesday. From the consultations that have been going on, which frankly feel interminable, there have been 4 or 5 amendments made, which were told in confidential session to the ECDev about a week to 10 days ago. I'm not going to go through what those were because that's confidential stuff, but I think it's no secret there's a few amendments based on public consultation, which for any public watching here is a good indication that yes, the public consultations do make a difference to these things. And then we're going to be moving it forward with it coming through to the steering group on this Wednesday and then to full council in about a fortnight's time.
Thank you very much. John, did I see your hand up?
You did, and I'm trying to find the exact number and I can't now. But when I was looking through the accounts earlier on, I was slightly horrified because of course when we did the budget last year, we were told that there would be no more neighbourhood plan costs and didn't put any budget in for it this year. And I noticed that there has been a considerable expenditure on the neighbourhood plan so far this year. I forget quite how much it was. That I can't remember if it said 7,500 or 17,500, and I can't find the entry there, which is really irritating me. But I'm really concerned about what more costs might we be seeing, because obviously this is gone. There's a massive expenditure this year that we were told we weren't going to be getting. And it concerns me, especially because I think that they're going to become even weaker than they are now in the very soon short future.
I will come back and confirm to you about that, but I do recall that when they did the additional consultation, council did agree to a cost and that's when it was dead. Then there will be no more. So that's definitely something.
No, that was the second time that we were promised there'd be no more. We were told there would be no more when we set the budget because it had already gone through. Then they decided they'd reconsult on, they'd do again what had already been done. And then we had to stand the costs for that. And we were promised a second time around that there would be no more costs.
I'll come back to you.
Andrew.
According to the report from Carpets today, up to the end of August, we had spent £7,630.
But that's the one that I. Thank you very much. So I guarantee that's it now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can we make sure that's reflected in the minutes, please?
It's government changes the goalposts.
Well, exactly.
Any more comments on neighbourhood plan? In that case, I'll draw the meeting to a close. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a lovely rest of your evening.
It's got no idea.
Oh. I had a plus. 40k plus.
Yeah, I, yes, yeah, definitely so.
But then I had the proper keyboard, not the keyboard.